So I thought this would be interesting. I was on YouTube and stumbled across this new series that Paula's Choice are doing called Off the Shelf. I guess it's just, like short videos where they rapid fire answer questions. And of course, this one is featuring Paula Begoun herself. So I started watching it and I was like 30 seconds in and I was like, this will be an interesting thing to react to, I think. She has like a little bit of like sass to her. I think that they should feature her more frequently. I think that she appears on camera very well. She has clearly been doing this for a long time. And I also think that because she's been for so long grounded in what she would say is very evidence-based approaches to skin and skincare. She is very much somebody that is confident in what she has to say. And generally speaking, I think most, if not all of what I've heard her say directly, I completely agree with. That being said, I don't know if that's the case here. There's always an opportunity for a difference in opinion, but nevertheless, I thought that this would be an interesting thing to watch, and just get a reaction to. So here we go.
Generally, I hate talking about trends. They're rarely backed by any research. I don't know where the hell that came from. I can't think of a reason. Hello, I'm Paula Begoun, founder of Paula's Choice Skincare, and I am really excited to bust myths. We're going to take them off the shelf. Some have been sitting around too long. They're going to be right here, and I'm going to take care of them for you.
See, this is what I mean. Like, she's fun. Like, I like her on camera. I really do.
One of the myths I'm taking off the shelf is the one about scrubbing away blackheads. Not only can't you scrub away blackheads, it's actually one of the worst things you can do for skin. What you do instead is you use a product like a BHA, beta-hydroxy acid, or alpha-hydroxy acid. Research shows...
So... completely agree. Scrubbing is probably not the way to unclog a clogged pore. With blackheads in particular, I think that you're probably better off using a beta-hydroxy acid. I really don't. I think that obviously there are people that have had success with alpha-hydroxy acids when it comes to pore management, pore clarity. I feel like if you're going to incorporate a chemical exfoliant for the purpose of keeping your pores clear or clearing out congested pores, I just think a beta-hydroxy acid makes the most sense. It's much more direct. I feel like an alpha-hydroxy acid it's like, why would you get that when you could get the beta-hydroxy acid? In this particular instance, it just doesn't really make sense to me. So, I mean, I would agree. Scrubbing, the other thing too, is that if you are scrubbing your face, harshly, being really rough with it in any way, shape, or form, particularly if you are somebody that is prone to congestion, the inflammation, the irritation that you might cause because of that excessive exfoliation, that scrubbing action, the friction, all of that, you could potentially exacerbate existing pore issues. So you might create new problems without even solving the one that you originally set out to. So I think very wise advice to avoid a physical exfoliant in the case of a clogged pore. That being said, I know that some people find success using light manual exfoliation on a semi-regular basis when they're trying to keep their pores clear. I think that what you're probably doing is just enabling slightly better penetration of some of these pore clearing agents, which is valid. I just think that there's probably better ways to go about that. Like, for example, using a retinoid. Using a retinoid consistently is going to make virtually everything that you use more effective, both in terms of pore clarity as well as anti-aging, all of these things. So just using a retinoid is also going to improve pore clarity on its own. Using a retinoid in conjunction with something like a beta-hydroxy acid, which is a much more specific pore treatment than something like a retinoid, for example, although debatable. I mean, retinoids are a fairly pore-specific category, I would say. So I think that even though you can potentially get some decent results using some light manual exfoliation in conjunction with pore clearing agents, generally speaking, my preference would be for you to forego that physical exfoliation in favor of a retinoid, which would then increase pore clarity while also increasing the efficacy of whatever other pore clearing agents you're using. Now, that being said, there's always a little bit of a caveat there, because while retinoids can basically help with almost all skin issues, they also require a higher level of attention to detail, I'll say. It's much easier to just give somebody a scrub and tell them to use it gently a couple times a week than it is to give them a retinoid and expect them to be successful. So depending upon who you're talking about, it might actually be better to use some gentle manual exfoliation in your pore clarity routine. That being said, it's worth noting that that should really only be incorporated once you've achieved clearance and in cases where there are not any active inflammatory lesions. So if you are covered in breakouts, do not use a scrub to encourage penetration of your breakout fighting agent. Definitely just lean into the chemical exfoliants. In that case, I would maybe consider using an AHA in combination with a BHA over using something like a physical scrub, anything like that. The risks for post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, for increased inflammation, which potentially exacerbates the risk of scarring. You're just making a lot of things a lot worse if you introduce manual exfoliation into a setting where the pores are not only clogged, but they're inflamed. Blackheads are generally what we would consider non-inflamed lesions, so the concern is a little bit less there. You could maybe get away with some light exfoliation to, again, increase the efficacy of those pore clearing agents in that case without causing too much trouble. But as a direct treatment, absolutely not. Doesn't make any sense.
And the bad rays of the sun come through windows. 365 days a year, SPF 30 or greater. Greater is better. Please, anything you've heard different is killing your skin. It's hurting so many parts of your body. It makes no sense.
Oh my God. 100%. This is something that I always go back to. I think she's actually one of the people that really drove this home. Her and Dr. Dre online as well have both been very effective at conveying the message around the damage that is incurred through sun exposure immediately upon exposure, because people talk about vitamin D synthesis and they say, well, I mean, a little bit of sun is, good because of the vitamin D. Or they'll say, well, a little bit of sun is good because of the beneficial effects on circadian rhythm. And, of course, robust and well-calibrated circadian rhythm helps you sleep better. And obviously sleeping better is very good for your skin and total body health, so on and so forth. It's true that you will synthesize vitamin D upon exposure to the sun. Now, how much you will synthesize is very specific to the individual, very specific to the location, specific to the intensity of the rays, the time of day, so on and so forth. The inconsistencies associated with vitamin D synthesized through UV exposure make it a very unreliable way of achieving adequate vitamin D levels, in my opinion. The reason for that is that your ability to synthesize vitamin D will vary so greatly from one day to the next, from 1 hour to the next. You cannot reliably achieve the optimal levels of vitamin D through exposure to the sun because, one, we don't walk around naked, and two, you, again, do not have complete control over how much vitamin D you're able to synthesize at a given time. You also, because many people have jobs, don't have full control over when you can expose your skin to the sun. So, again, there's a lot of reasons why it doesn't really make sense to rely upon it as the way to synthesize, or rather to achieve your vitamin D levels. So, relying on supplementation, I think, is better because, one, it's more consistent. You can control it. You can modify it as well if you're somebody that, for whatever reason, just has consistently low levels, then rather than trying to rework your life so that you can expose more of your skin to the sun more frequently, you could just take a different supplement or introduce one if you're not already using one. And you do all of that without the negative consequences associated with the sun exposure. So like she's saying, sun damage begins at minute 1, and it doesn't actually mean minute 1. It means immediately. So it's not like after 60 seconds, then your skin begins to burn or incur damage. It's that you begin to incur damage immediately. Now, there's beneficial things happening at the same time that you're incurring that damage because you're synthesizing the vitamin D, but you can achieve the vitamin D levels that you need in order to maintain total body health while avoiding the detrimental effects of sun exposure. And I'm not just talking about the effect that it has on skin aging, but also on cancer risk, particularly if you're somebody like myself who has, a number of atypical moles. I'm generally considered higher risk for melanoma than somebody that had fewer atypical moles. Being conscious of the skin cancer risk is another thing to note when you're talking about whether or not you should be leaning into the sun as a means of achieving your vitamin D levels. So again, it just doesn't really make sense. You can be more reliably exposed to, or ingest rather, the correct vitamin D levels in the form of a supplement or some other dietary change than if you were to rely solely on the sun. You also are able to then achieve the desired vitamin D levels without the negative effects associated with sun exposure on the skin. That includes DNA damage, that is a direct risk for skin cancer, the negative effects associated with skin aging, that's the other thing too, is that it's not even just about fine lines and wrinkles or pigmentation, sagging, all of these things that we're trying to avoid. It's also about just maintaining robust skin quality. Because as we age, our skin thins out and becomes much more susceptible to damage and is much more, therefore, at risk of infection. So the skin is an organ, right? It does have a purpose beyond just, holding all of your organs in. So keeping that organ in good condition is a helpful thing to do. So it's not just about vanity. Even if you don't care about fine lines and wrinkles, pigmentation, so on and so forth, even if you remove the cancer piece, I mean, the negative effects that it has on skin thickness, skin resilience, I mean, it actively suppresses your skin's immune system. That's something that a lot of people don't really know or they don't think about. I mean, part of the reason why your acne can seem to improve when you go out in the sun, it's not because the sun is healing your acne. It's because that is your skin's response to immunosuppression. So your skin's natural attempt to heal itself and to recruit the immune system to effectively address what are basically like little follicular infections is reduced. So your skin's immune system is being suppressed by UV radiation. And so the outcome of that is less inflamed acne, but you can also have rebound inflammation. So it's not even really a solution. The other thing too is that if you have active acne and you're exposing your skin to the sun, the risk of post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation following the resolution of that acne is even greater. So you're not helping yourself. You are causing so much more harm than good. It just is not worth it. All of that to say, wear the damn sunscreen, in the words of Dr. Shireen Idris. Just wear the damn sunscreen.
No sense. Retinol and vitamin C live very happily in skin at the same time naturally. That means they would be very happy when you apply them together to take the best care of your skin, giving skin a very powerful cell-communicating ingredient and a very powerful antioxidant. And this myth...
Retinol and other vitamin A derived ingredients stimulate collagen production, but in order to produce collagen, your skin requires vitamin C. So optimizing vitamin C levels, in my mind, optimizes the collagen induction response that you'll see when using a vitamin A. So it doesn't really make sense to me to say that you can't use them together, really for any reason, other than potential irritation. She doesn't address it here, but this is clearly not a very, in-depth review of each of these particular myths. So what she would probably say is, yeah, they're great. You can use them together. You should use them together, so on and so forth, except for instances in which you cannot tolerate them together. If your skin is extremely sensitive, you may find that you can only tolerate one or the other. And in those instances, I would always defer to the vitamin A because that's going to give you much more bang for buck. There are vitamin C products that are designed for sensitive skin. There are vitamin C products that come in a variety of different formats. So even if you can't use their vitamin C, which if I'm not mistaken is an L-ascorbic acid formulation, so kind of like CE ferulic, that true L-ascorbic acid formula, those tend to require a lower pH. Not always. As we've seen with brands like Naturium, there are ways to formulate L-ascorbic acid that don't require very low pHs. Some of the historically irritating components of vitamin C formulas we've since, developed new ways to get around. But the other piece too is there's a ton of vitamin C derivatives, some with more evidence behind them than others. But at the end of the day, they all get into the skin and then ultimately convert into L-ascorbic acid. Exactly how much of that is going to get into the skin and convert to L-ascorbic acid is another matter. But because you can have derivatives that don't require those sometimes more irritating formulas, again, this is a way to get vitamin C into the skin that doesn't cause as much direct irritation as a traditional L-ascorbic acid formula may do. So combining retinol and vitamin C is a fantastic thing to do. The caveat being, you may have to do a little bit of trial and error in order to find a combination that suits your skin if you are someone that is prone to sensitivity. If you are someone that finds that your skin is generally quite robust and not particularly sensitive, you can probably get away with both without having to do too much work to find, very compatible formulas. Unless, of course, you're someone that has not been using a vitamin A. I wouldn't introduce both of these at the same time because that retinization period is going to, even for people that are generally less sensitive, you're going to be more sensitive during the retinization period. And so in that particular moment, you may not be able to tolerate both. But once you've achieved tolerance with the retinol, you're using it consistently without too much of an issue, then introducing a vitamin C, I think, is a fantastic thing to do. A lot of the data that we get from SkinCeuticals that really does demonstrate the power of vitamin C, and I think just antioxidants more generally. Now, of course, to what extent those results can be extrapolated to apply to formulas other than CE ferulic is another question. But I think at the end of the day, you're basically talking about, okay, what can we achieve with a robust and effective vitamin C formula? And what you can achieve is pretty significant, I would say, based on the data that they have. Of course, as with all things, taking that with a bit of a grain of salt, because of course it is brand sponsored. But nevertheless, it's been around for a while. It's very well trusted by dermatologists, and there's a reason for that. It's because it works. People have seen the benefits. I mean, vitamin C works. When people say it doesn't, or they, suggest that it's not worth it, I just don't really understand. I mean, it's been around forever for a reason. Not that being around forever is a direct reflection of legitimacy or efficacy, but in this instance, I think that the staying power of vitamin C in the skincare space is in some ways reflective of some value.
How you layer skincare products, some of it's true and some of it needs to get off the shelf and stay off the shelf. The basic rule of thumb is to apply them in order of consistency. Some ingredients are meant to stay on top of the skin, some to absorb a little lower, and one product won't get in the way of the other. The only product that goes on last during the day is sunscreen.
Okay, I'm very excited to see what she says about beef tallow. I had somebody tell me that beef tallow has a natural SPF of 30. I said, oh. The point about layering skincare, I almost don't want to talk about it just because it almost feels like beating a dead horse. But at the same time that I say that, because like we talk about like thinnest to thickest, watery to less watery, blah, 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 or water to oily or whatever. Some people even talk about like pH levels and stuff. Like the way that some people layer skincare is very interesting to me. I think I don't really know how to explain it other than to say that after you have fully internalized the thinnest to thickest, the water to oil, and then of course the sunscreen always being last, beyond that, it's kind of just personal preference almost. I mean, I feel very strongly that my way of layering the products that I use is generally the best way to do it. But I think that at the end of the day, as long as it feels comfortable on your skin, it's not causing problems like pillings. As long as it's getting on your skin, you're going to be getting some benefit. If we're talking about extremes, right, don't apply the thickest product in your routine, aka your moisturizer, before the thinnest product. It generally doesn't matter very much unless you're talking about products that are designed to form some kind of film or seal over the skin. So that includes moisturizers, includes sunscreens. In those instances, they should generally be applied last. Now, to what extent it matters if you apply your serum before your essence, or your essence before your serum, or your toner, blah, blah, like all those things, that probably doesn't really matter very much. But when you're talking about, again, products that are designed to form some kind of barrier, that is when you want to be a little bit more mindful, because those are the instances where you will probably see some reduced penetration. And that could be a good thing in the case of like a retinoid that you're trying to buffer with a moisturizer. But if you're talking about like a, mild antioxidant serum, I want that to penetrate as effectively as possible. But yeah, I mean, layering, I don't know. It's like the question that will never really be answered, I think.
There is no research about beef tallow being good for skin, definitely not having any sunscreen properties. I don't know where the hell that came from. Don't believe it for a second. It's not an antioxidant. It's not a retinol. I can't think of a reason. I just, maybe for cooking.
And it's beef. Oh, it's just so nasty. The thought of it is just, I can't.
You can't make your own sunscreen. just makes no sense. The things you can put together in your kitchen has nothing to do with great skincare. How did I get to be so blessed? I still don't get it. So 30 years ago, 1995, I decided that after all of the work I had done in the cosmetics industry, that I was going to launch my own brand. And it was pretty controversial at the time. Paula's Choice became a global brand spanning so many countries. I'm so proud that I've been able to improve people's feeling about their self-confidence, their self-esteem, and they can touch their face and go, I really like the way that feels, and look in the mirror and say, I really like the way I look. Woo! As long as it has bubbles, it's a beautiful way to toast Paula's Choice 30th anniversary to all of us, to all of Paula's Choice around the globe. Congratulations to us all. Oh, I think we should have anniversaries every day.
That was fantastic. Again, I really like her. I just like her personality. I think it's just great. The interview that she did with Nadine Baggett, I really, really enjoyed. I think that it's so interesting to see and hear from someone that has been in the industry for as long as she has been in the space in the capacity that she has. So as a brand founder, as a product, not necessarily formulator, because to my knowledge, she's not a cosmetic chemist, but she obviously, particularly in the beginning, I would imagine, had a lot of influence over the kinds of products that were being made. So she was the driving force behind these things. Similar in the way that Susan Yara is the driving force behind a lot of the products launched from Naturium. You know, she's not a chemist herself, but the existence of certain products is a reflection of the priorities that she has and the things that she believes in. And those are both influenced by her experience in the industry, her experience using the products that she's used, seeing results from some and not from others. So I think that it's very interesting when you have somebody that has like a very personal story. So that was fun. Again, I think that they should feature her more often. I think that she has a great personality. She obviously has a very deep connection to this brand and the story behind it. I think the goal of Paula's Choice has always been to cut through the noise, deliver products that have solid ingredients that are backed by evidence, that have some kind of, theoretical justification for their use, and then making them into, solid formulas. And I think that that's exactly what they've done. Like I said, have never had a bad experience with any of their products. Their 1% clinical retinol treatment, that one is a fantastic retinol. I go to that all the time. Like if I just want like a solid, strong retinol specifically, and it's, the cases in which I'm recommending a retinol over retinaldehyde, for example, are few and far between. But that 1% retinol from Paula's Choice is a fantastic, well-loved product. The 0.3% bakuchiol 0.3% retinol with 2% bakuchiol, I think is a fantastic starter retinoid. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. If you are interested in learning more about skincare from the perspective of a licensed esthetician, one that in particular lives in Florida where the sun is absolutely unavoidable, you're welcome to tag along.